something about Al-Qaeda. What do you think about this organization?
Well, Al-Qaeda is a manufactured enemy, and it's made in the USA and to an extent made in Britain, the dynamic duo again. When you look at the history of it, the man currently behind Barack Obama, called Zbigniew Brzezinski, he was the national security advisor to Jimmy Carter in the late 70s. And a few years ago now, maybe 5-6 years ago, maybe a bit more, he was interviewed by a French news magazine about his involvement in enticing and encouraging the Soviet Union to invade Afghanistan, the occupation of something like 10 years. And what he admitted, he didn't seem to think it was a problem, was that before the invasion, Brzezinski and the Carter administration decided they wanted to give the Soviet Union what they called their Vietnam. So as part of this process of manipulating them in, the Kabul government in Afghanistan, like the government now of Mohammad Karzai, didn't control the entire country, but it was it answered to the Soviet Union. So Brzezinski admitted that what they then did was start to fund and train fighters, what they today would call terrorists, or some others would call freedom fighters, to resist and challenge the regime in Kabul. This, of course, had the effect, as they wanted, to get the Soviet Union to say, we must intervene here or our regime in Kabul is going to fall. So we had something like 10 years of that occupation in which 1 million Afghans died. And Brzezinski, again, didn't seem to think that was much of a problem because, hey, what was the problem? We gave major problems to our other superpower, so it was a good thing. This is how these people think. I'll tell you that 3 names that keep coming up in terms of manipulated wars around the world. Georgia recently was a classic example of this, and those names are the United States, the United Kingdom, and Israel. In Georgia, for instance, you had the so-called People's Revolution in Georgia, which was called the Rose Revolution because some of them held roses. That was funded by a man called George Soros, who is a close associate of Zbigniew Brzezinski, the man behind Barack Obama. And so it's not surprising to hear that George Soros is a major funder of Barack Obama's election campaign.
U.S. National Security Advisor Brzezinski flew to Pakistan to set about rallying resistance. He wanted to arm the Mujahideen without revealing America's role. On the Afghan border near the Khyber Pass, he urged the soldiers of God to redouble their efforts.
We know of their deep belief in God, and we are confident that their struggle will succeed. That land over there is yours. You'll go back to it one day because your fight will prevail and you'll have your homes and your mosques back again because your cause is right and God is on your side.
The purpose of coordinating with the Pakistanis will be to make the Soviets bleed for as much as long as possible.
the other side of it is this port of Gwadar. That has become operational this year, and they could build a pipeline up there that would go straight into China. It would cut about 25% of the cost, and it would save them about 12,000
I understand why it's happening, but what, I mean, looking at the attacks.
Let's look at who we have. Let's look at the attacks. You basically got 5 or 6 indications, right? First thing is, anything happening in the Indian subcontinent, the British are always the prime suspect. Always look for the old colonial power. The British were there for 200, 250 years. Anything in India, Pakistan, look to the British. What do we find? That the initial reports were that they were British citizens. They were Pakistani origin. British citizens were some of the killers. Those were early reports that then somehow disappeared. So what do we got there? Brixton Mosque, Finsbury Mosque, maybe. They have an operation up in Leeds in Yorkshire. They can recruit Pakistanis. They get them out of Her Majesty's prisons. They can brainwash them. They can send them over. That's number one. Secondly, the Israelis. Israel and India have this tremendously developed special relationship, right? Where the Indians are always buying hardware.
Webster,
and
stay there. Webster, stay there.
Okay.
We've got to break again. This is so important. You know, I may have you just come back at the end of the show today because you've got to bring you back in on the Mumbai attacks because it's so important. They say they're going into Pakistan. They say there's going to be a crisis there. Right. And then on cue, it starts. And you were talking about the Israeli situation, and this could be a reverse false flag. It could be a setup, but they were wearing the large Hindu sect Zionist wristbands. They had LSD, cocaine, classic mind control. You have the intelligence chief who had just caught them months ago. The Indians, he busted
Yes. They killed him.
Yes. Well, let's get into that because the evidence, there's hundreds of pieces. Only terrorism chiefs that had exposed that the Indian government was staging terror attacks, they all die within minutes.
Right. So basically, the British, we've done. The Israelis, General Mizrahi, the head of the Israeli armed forces, ground forces, goes to the disputed area of Kashmir. That's a big affront to the Muslim Pakistani side of it, right? The whole Kashmir issue is something that we should go through. It's basically India is occupying Islamic populations. The UN resolutions on Kashmir is that they're supposed to be free elections. Who's blocking the free elections is India, not Pakistan. So the Israelis are very big. You could also say, look at the ineptitude, look at the stupidity of the Indian special forces, right? They were trained by the Israelis, and now they're screwing it all up.
Well, no,
that went on for 65 hours.
They stand down and don't shoot, and then 5 of the terrorism chiefs and deputies who'd all criticize the government, they are the ones that only magically get triple tapped apiece.
Right.
Impossible.
Okay. But now,